Welcome to another episode of Two Ales and Hockey Tales with Wally. And today, I am so excited to have on the very first NHL hockey player on the podcast. When I searched his name on Elite Prospects, there was a little NHL logo beside his name, and it said 58,847 people have viewed his Elite Prospects page. He's a 39-year-old from Sarnia, Ontario, who's played 55 games for the Western Michigan Broncos. And he is an NHL alumni who has never been scored on playing one game for the Chicago Blackhawks. He is my favorite NHL player, which is why I am wearing my The Accountant t-shirt. Scott Foster, how are you doing today, Foz?
Oh, it's good to see you, Wally. I don't know, that whole like one NHL game might be a bit of an overstatement. I think it's 1/4 of an NHL game, but I guess those minutes count.
Oh, we played more NHL minutes than anybody else on the podcast, and we are at episode 17 now, maybe. So I guess I better tell the backstory of this. Is the wife's gone for the weekend, so it's my time to shine. When the kids go to bed, it's time to hit the podcast world. And I kind of feel like it's the East Coast and it's a Sunday afternoon, and I'm playing the third game in 3 nights because this is the third night in a row I've been podcasting. I've been to Austria, I've been to Waterdown, and now I am podcasting where?
Chicago, Illinois. Well,
Yeah.
Oak Park, close enough. We'll call it Chicago. That's quite the road trip you got going on, though. That's quite a lot of time in the Iron Loam.
Well, it's been a busy weekend, but this is what I want to do. Like, this is what I enjoy to do. When the kids go to bed, I get to come out to my shed and I get to relive great times with old buddies. And me and you haven't talked since, I guess, we both left Kalamazoo back in what year would that be? 2005?
What, 2006 probably?
Something like that.
That's a couple days ago.
So we haven't talked since then. Yeah, really? I don't think. So how we know each other is what I will bring up now. Is the Foz and I, we played 4 years together with the Western Michigan Broncos. We lived next door to each other basically the whole time in the dorms and then at the U Club. Do you remember the U Club?
Oh, I can't forget the U Club. I still think I'm trying to wash the U Club off of me to this day. That place was really something, wasn't it? Do you remember when we finally, in our apartment across the hall from you and Jans and Daryl and Stretchy, like when we moved, like when we got the carpets cleaned, do you remember that summer? We moved the sofa.
There was so much disgusting stuff happening in that apartment. Like, Stretchy and I's bathtub had like a foot of water in it for like months.
I just assumed they like had to gut Reno when we moved out. Like, I think
I'm pretty sure we got our deposits back though.
No, there's no way.
I'm pretty sure we did. I don't know. We'll have to go to the fact finders on that one. But the U Club was a heck of a spot, and we really grew up together, didn't we, Foz?
Yeah, I mean, I still kind of, we probably met for the first time, probably like orientation weekend, which I really remember as my first.
When Jans came with the boom boom.
The boom boom, and it was also my first introduction to Jimmy John's.
Stretchy loved the Jimmy Johns, didn't he? Like, he was infatuated with Jimmy Johns. I remember him having the delivery guy at speed dial in the dorms.
Well, that was like they delivered for free to the dorms. Like, we still had like the dorm like landlines. Like, I don't even think we could get like cell phones for like a couple of years when we were on campus because we didn't have SOCH number.
Yeah, I actually do remember we had actual phones in our dorm rooms. We didn't have cell phones at the start, but I think by the end of it, we could even have like pictures of people on our phones when they called us. It was pretty exciting times, eh?
Big changes in technology, I guess.
Yeah, I remember when Facebook came out and Daryl Moore got in big trouble for like posting that we were having a party on Facebook. And I didn't know what Facebook was. I'm like, what is Facebook? What do you mean? And like you had to have a student email address to even be on Facebook, right?
Well, I remember we got punished for like beer darts. You remember
Oh,
that game?
I that was my favorite game in the world. I the natty lights and you'd stack all the beers in the middle and we'd be throwing darts at the everybody's beer sitting out in front of them and wherever the dart pierces the beer, you have to shotgun the beer to there. So if it's in the bottom inch of the beer, then you got to shotgun the whole thing. And once you get 3 darts in your can, you got to finish it and you just keep playing. And the more beers you put in front of you, obviously, the more people are going to throw darts at your cans. So basically, the more you're willing to drink, the more darts you get to throw to make it more entertaining. And it is quite the day when, like, we would get the football team together and the hockey team together, wouldn't we?
I've tried to explain that game to people, and I think I've almost been fired from jobs. The thought that they'd even like associate with something of that nature. Like, I still remember the day Chewy got one in his foot.
Was it Chewy? I thought it was Bicyc. I remember the blood shooting in the air.
Oh yeah, maybe it was Bicyc.
There was there was a drunk girl playing the game, and she was like, "Ha ha ha ha!" And then she threw the dart, and it hit him in the foot. And
they're
we
real
pulled the
darts.
We pulled the dart out, and blood started shooting in the air. Do you remember that?
I mean, yeah. I guess I just thought that happened in the movies, but apparently that is a real life thing.
No, that happened. That was real life, and I'm pretty sure he had to go to the clinic or whatever you call it.
Well, yeah, I think at that point you're probably safe with the amount of booze you're drinking. You're probably fine from.
It wasn't clotting well. I know that.
Well, rarely do darts probably allow you to, self-heal, I would assume.
Oh my gosh. So I was worried I wasn't going to be bringing my A game because it's the third game in 3 nights. And but then I realized I'm a professional and I'm going to fight through this. And the Foz deserves my A game. And I think this has been a great start so far, Foz. I never would have guessed we'd be talking about beer darts right now.
Oh, well, it was a quality game. I think we can thank Mo for that one, right?
Mo was the one, Mike Erickson was the one that brought it from Minnesota. And man, it changed my life and changed my life and my physique last year. But I was a heck of a beer dart player. I know that I excelled in that league. Okay, so that's how we know each other. And I just had on the notes was we know each other from the U Club, the dorms, and yeah, well, we'll get into that later. So, what are you doing now, and where are you now? I'm pretty sure I know because I'm wearing the shirt. You're the accountant.
Yeah. Who would have thought in one interview where you throw out your profession that it would transform so well into a t-shirt, apparently. No, I'm an accountant. I live in Oak Park, just outside of the city limits in Chicago. But I'm an accountant, obviously, but I work in financial services. So a lot of rich people's money.
Services. Oh, okay, so you're an accountant with people's money.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not like a financial planner. You're an accountant.
No, there's a lot smarter people doing those types of decisions than me. I just work kind of in the back office, making sure all the kind of the books behind that money are all set.
Sounds really exciting.
Yeah, you can probably feel my excitement from how I describe it, right?
I'm not sure what to say. That
I
crunching
work,
numbers just doesn't sound very sexy to me, but I guess I never went through school to do accounting because I didn't want to.
yeah, yeah. Most people, I think, did their accounting class to because it was required. For some reason, I chose to do many more of those, but it lets me do the things I want to do. So that's about enough, I guess, about why I'm in accounting. I would
Well,
never describe it with love as
it's not a
part of the description.
it's not like a podcast that you do for free and put in a lot of hours and a lot of time and don't get paid anything for. It's not a passion project like that, you could say.
Yeah, that's a pretty good description. I'm good at it. I know what I'm doing. But again, it lets me do all the things I want to do outside of those four walls of that cubicle.
Well, the last accounting class I took was managerial accounting in my MBA, and I got through it, and I did it, and I got a good grade, but I don't think it was a passion of mine, we'll say.
Fair enough.
Okay, so I guess you're in Chicago, you're an accountant, and now it's you are from Sarnia, Ontario. So what was minor hockey like for you around there? And was it triple A, single A, or like were you good from a young age? Give me that background.
So I started playing actually in the village of Point Edward, which is like a rink. It's a small little like right under the bridge in under the Blue Water Bridge. There's an arena. So I played a couple years. That's where I played like house league hockey before I actually moved into playing hockey in Sarnia. We didn't have.
I've crossed that bridge probably 1,000 times, and I
Yeah.
had no idea there's a rink underneath it.
Yep, right underneath that bridge, there's a rink. So I started my first organized hockey there. That's actually where I picked up playing goal. Kind of the traditional like hockey story, probably, of like rotating through who has to play net. Gets to my turn, you post a shutout and you're hooked for life, apparently. So I started playing hockey there.
You think that's what it was? Because I think goalies are goalies, and I think you scream goalie.
Well, it's funny. I think my parents have like the old home video of like my first like learn to skate, and I'm skating around the ice like hand halfway down the stick. Like you play little scrimmages with the puck, and I'm the one like in player equipment trying to like not let the puck go in the net. Like, so I think it was kind of in my DNA at some point early on.
I think we can all agree it was in your DNA that you're a goalie.
So yeah, I played a little bit in Point Edward before I moved over to Sarnia, which is when I got into like travel hockey. We had no AAA in our area at all. We were probably like single A or double A, whatever it would have been. So it wasn't until I think Pee Wee that we had the program like Lambton Lightning started, which was really a county team. Sarnia wasn't probably big enough to have like its own AAA program. So we had like the county team started, which I didn't move to. I don't think those first couple of years, like a lot of probably the top players, and not necessarily saying that I was one of them, but like moved over because everybody kind of had their group of friends and stuff that they were playing with on their teams. My town was split. We had Sarnia, and then we had this township called Clearwater that they had their own minor hockey program too, and everybody had their like allegiances. It was rivalry, all like the old kid stuff. So I think I started playing AAA when I was in probably major Pee Wee. It was the first year.
That'd be the Lambton Shore or whatever it's called.
I think that's a junior team now, isn't it?
I don't know.
Maybe.
What was the AAA team called?
Lambton Lightning.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I remember though. It's weird, man, when you don't realize as a kid when you're playing those AAA tournaments. Like I remember moving my stuff out of my parents' bedroom when I was like an adult, when I moved out and I was cleaning out the bedroom. And you go through the old programs of when you were a kid from the AAA tournaments in the spring hockey. And like there was a lot of guys that made the NHL, and I had no idea. I had played against all of them. You don't know who people are
Oh,
when you're a kid, right?
the you you don't realize probably how small like the hockey world is until you actually like sit down and start, drawing some lines
Well, and
about
that's what
like
this
where people.
podcast has done, right? Like this podcast, I was doing a podcast with John East, who was my junior B coach, and Ross Yancey came up on it, like as the coach that cut him.
Well, I mean, playing here in Chicago, like I play at a rink called like Johnny's Ice House, and Chicago's like a huge hockey area. There's like tons of AAA program. It's not like where I grew up where it was like one AAA program for an entire county. Like
And they were
there's
brutal. Yeah.
there's like, a dozen AAA programs. It feels like every rink has like a different AAA program, and some are better than others, but they all like kind of exist. So it's like a huge hockey town. But the amount of guys that like play down at Johnny's that are still skating, and you start talking to players like they've been wherever, and you're like, oh yeah, I played on this team, and you bring up a name and like, oh, I know that guy because I played with him here or there or whatever. And it's like, it's crazy to like how many stories intersect. It's wild.
It is quite the spider's web, the hockey world, and we are all a lot closer than you think. Okay, we got off topic there, I'm pretty sure, because so you're doing that. You're in Pee Wee, you go to AAA, but then the first time I ever saw you as a goaltender was I knew you were recruited by Western Michigan already, and you were playing for Petrolia, and you came to Elmira, and I had already signed with Western Michigan. So basically, I was playing against a goalie I knew was going to be my goalie in the future. But how does that all happen? How do you go from starting AAA and Pee Wee to then be getting a full ride to Western Michigan?
So I guess like my junior kind of progression was probably a little bit abstract, I suppose. I mean, you grew up in the same kind of era where it was like get into junior hockey like as fast as you can. Like that was just the way you did it. Like every year that would have passed, you felt like you were behind. So I played AAA through Bantam. When I got to I suppose like my midget kind of season, I was the team in Sarnia had a junior B team, and I was in their camp, and I get kind of dragged along, and I ultimately don't make the team, and I'm trying now to pick up a junior C team just to get into junior hockey. And at that point, like I go to a tryout, and like all the spots are taken. Like at that point like I had lasted so long that there's nowhere to like find a play. So I ended up going not even in AAA anymore. I was like back to like playing single A midget at that point. And it turned out to be like such a like pivotal year for me, because during that like single A midget time, I ended up playing a bunch of junior B games for the team in Sarnia for a coach. And that it's kind of a roundabout story, but that year playing for that coach is ultimately the coach that I played for in Petrolia. So I played a bunch. I was playing for two teams that year. I was playing up in the junior B team and playing like single A midget hockey. So on the ice like twice a day, a bunch of times and stuff like that. So kind of ultimately like a really good growth year, I suppose. The following year, I played a year in Moortown, like for a junior C team. I ended up getting my junior B rights traded a couple times that season. Like just weird stuff that probably never happens anymore, like at all.
So you're from Sarnia and you're getting your rights traded away because
basically
I remember there was a team there was a team tried to trade for me, the one coach in Elmira. They tried to trade me to Petrolia or something, and I was like, I'm playing for my hometown, and you're trying to like trade me to play junior B when I already have a scholarship, and it was to Petrolia. Jamie Petrie, did he coach you?
Oh yeah, yeah. So
the spider web, buddy, the spider web. Here we go.
Spider web. Yeah. So like that year, I'm getting traded between Sarnia and Petrolia.
That's why we played you at exhibition, was because Pi was your coach, and he had coached us the year before we won the championship. Now it's all coming back to me. It's all coming back. It's all coming back to me now.
So like I remember getting traded in like a 5-for-1 deal. So I'm like, okay, I'm 1/5 the player that guy is. Like I was learning early, like the ins and outs of how hockey works. So I play a year junior C, and I go back. At that point, my rights had been traded to Petrolia and then back to Sarnia. So I have to go back to Sarnia's camp because they own my rights. And I just assume like at this point, I gotta be moving up the ladder. And I go to their camp, and the moment the coach says to me, like, we want you to, come back for more, I basically said, I want my release. Like, I'm done. Like so by then, that year that I had played like a single A and junior B, that coach that I had played for was coaching in Petrolia. And I got in contact with him, and he was like, well, he's like, we're gonna buy you from Sarnia. I want you to play out here. He was like, admittedly, we were kind of hoping they would just like cut you and we could just get you, but we're just gonna buy you now. So I was traded twice and bought. So I ended up
gotta feel good to be bought, eh?
Yeah. And finally it was like, all right, I'm getting like real money put on me. So I ended up playing in Petrolia. And we were, had really good, like first full year in junior, which is when I started to get a lot of like interest from schools that first year. But it was also my last year of high school. So it was kind of decision time. There was a couple offers that I had on the table. Some didn't necessarily feel great. Others were like places that were wanting me to come that I had never even seen before. Like I hadn't stepped foot on a campus. So it was really weird. So after like consulting some people, I decided I was gonna, kind of forego like going away to school, like even in Canada or whatever, and go back and play another year junior. That was the year that Jamie Petrie came to Petrolia. So the coach that I had played for, he left to coach in Honeybake in the Detroit area for those like big AAA programs.
So he's getting paid to coach minor hockey.
Yeah. He took a pay increase to go and work for those families there, I suppose. But that's where our story starts to intersect, I think, a little more is Jamie Petrie came. He was an assistant or something out in Elmira, maybe.
Yeah, and then I'm learning more and more every day with this podcast. But basically, there was a bit of an issue there during the playoffs, and so then he ends up getting the head coach job at Petrolia, but he was the assistant coach. We win the championship, we win the Southern Cup, and then he goes to Petrolia, and I heard he tried to trade for me, or at least he told me he was trying to trade for me to Petrolia, which I guess would have had us play together.
It was interesting, to say the least. I mean, we had an owner that was willing to spend, which was really weird for looking back on it for like a junior B team. I mean, like the OHL was all over in our area, and we had guys that were getting paid. Their schooling was getting paid for. They were given cars to drive into play. So they bring in this new coach, and it seems like everything's going to be just like we're going to be a rocket to the moon on that team. And to say that it didn't go well would be probably like a massive understatement. I remember I had like a summer job, and he ended up, it was working at a water park. And I remember him like, not on purpose. It was just weird chance, but he ended up showing up there with his kids, family. And he's, and now all of a sudden, like I'm working this like stupid summer job, and he's propping me up about like how the season's going to go and all this stuff. That's how good we're going to be. It was really weird. But I mean, we would play like you're doing on this podcast right now. Like we'd play 3-3, and he'd play me all 3 games, like in a weekend. And we had like the other goalie on the team was very good. Like there's no reason that in junior B hockey that you should start a goalie 3 nights, 3 games in 3 nights.
Are you like the NHL goalies now, where you can't play back-to-backs? Are you that soft? Are you kidding me?
Like
Van Nijenatten with the Sugar Kings, he would have played 3-3, and if you tried to play Errol Carmen or Brock McGillis, he'd say, "No, it's my net. Like, get out of there. What are you talking about? You can't
maybe
play
then
3-3.
soft.
You're like 17 years old. Come on, Foz."
I would play 2 games in a day now, but back then, no way I'm playing 3 games in 3 nights.
You're a prima donna.
Yeah.
You're soft. You're soft.
It was an experience. I mean, we weren't doing great. I mean, I hated everything about the beginning of that season. I think
that sucks. That sucks, man. Especially when it's your last year at junior and you're going on a scholarship.
Yeah, because like at that point, I think like a month into that season, probably not even into the season at all, I had committed to Western. So you're really just kind of like riding it out till you leave for school. So I was done high school. Like I was literally just playing hockey, like playing junior B. Like that's what I had. That was my life. That's all I did.
Yeah, my last year, all I did was take, you were allowed to take 2 college courses, and that wouldn't affect a scholarship. So I went to Conestoga College, and because you don't need OACs or whatever, and I was already done high school. So I took a couple college courses to like advance the Western Michigan thing. But
yeah,
like that's all I had going on too, man. Like that was it. And
that was
junior B.
The same with me. I took a couple classes at Lambton College that were pre-approved by Jeff Stone at Western, and
Yep.
So I go to school like 2 days a week and played. I mean, we only practiced twice a week in Petrolia and play games on the weekekend. I mean,
that's living, isn't it? That's living.
It was. I would give anything to do that again.
Do you imagine that's all you have to do in a day? Oh my gosh.
To think that you thought you were stressing out about like this coach you didn't like, and then you realize you had nothing else. There was nothing else you worried about. I lived at home. There was nothing.
Oh man, our lives used to be such a joke, and we used to act like we were. Yeah, it's like now I have a hard time sitting down, and it's just like I'm just so used to being busy now that like I can't sit down. I haven't turned on the TV in months because I can't sit down.
So we had a little bit into that season. I think we finally reached our like wits end, and we had a mutiny at practice. I remember like we were out in the old like gravel parking lot behind Petrolia Arena. And there was like a door into the back of the rink, and we were all back outside there. Like, we can't play for this guy anymore. Like, this is nuts. Like, I hated going to practice. Like, I'd be doing drills and he'd be shooting pucks at me from the corner. Like it was a mess. And the owner showed up, and he was like, all right, what do we need to do here? And we're like, you either need to get rid of us, or you need to get rid of him. Like, we don't know what to do anymore, but we didn't practice. Like, we wouldn't go on the ice. So ultimately,
So the whole team came together to decide that?
yeah, we just
Who
couldn't.
started that? Who started
We
that?
had
Eventually somebody's got to say, okay, today was the last day.
so we had, as it goes in those leagues, like we had guys that were like junior B lifers, you know, like they played since they were probably like 13 or whatever the youngest age, and they were going to play until the last minute that they were like eligible. And that group had been in Petrolia too, like a couple of those guys. And you know, they were kind of the original like Spurs, but I mean, you know me well enough that I'm not exactly like the most outgoing personality, and not really going to get in anybody's face or anything like that. But they even came to me one day and they're like, what do you like? They had an apartment that was being paid for by like this owner. So they asked me to like come over, and they were like, what do you think about all this? Because we know you're not going to like be the first run to raise a stink. And I was like, I fucking hate this. Like, I can't like do this. Like, it's killing me like to even be here anymore. So they're the ones that like went to the owner and was like, you've got to do something. Like,
did he get fired? Because I don't want this to,
yeah.
Like, I don't know him that well. He coached me for like just a couple months, and like it sucks on this podcast when bad stuff comes up about people, because I don't want this to be shitting on people. And
No, and I
but
think
I understand, and I know he was, you could say, eccentric, but I do know that his true passion is coaching hockey.
well, I would say this, like, I think that was like his first head coaching gig, and everybody kind of learns like from experiences. So I think it was just kind of over the top of what,
With everything,
like, kind of
right?
with everything, like, and it's just trying to take control and different things. So it was just like kind of too much. So again, it was just, for the time, it just wasn't like a good experience. And it happens, like, you know, you don't always agree with every coach you play for.
That's for sure. That's for sure. So hold on, we got to keep going here, because we've gotten stuck in a hole here. Okay. So they fire the coach, I'm assuming, and then you probably finish out your year. But you already know you're going to Western Michigan. So explain that and how we end up at Western Michigan together.
Yeah, so like probably a lot of things like the year before that, and all, like with all-star games and things like that, like I'm getting recruited and stuff. So early in that year in Petrolia, I end up committing to Western. I still kind of remember that game. I was playing in the irony of it is, like, when we played Sarnia, that was like closer to home, but it was a road game for me. And I remember after the game, Culhane and Scott Garrow were supposed to both be at the game, but it was right after the 9/11. So it ultimately was just Scott Garrow that was able to be there. And he offered me the scholarship, like down in the, you know, the depths of Sarnia Arena. It's just one of those times in your career that's like important, that kind of is like burned into your brain.
You never forget it. Yeah.
Right. So I remember him offering, and I talked to my parents and stuff about like what we wanted. You know, it's probably like in the moment you're like, yes. But I took it away. We ended up calling him like later, a couple hours later or whatever, to kind of accept and stuff. So that was how I kind of picked Western. I think I had already been if I remember correctly, I'd already been to the school to see a game. So I ended up doing my like official like recruiting visit when I had already committed. I remember seeing Western play at home against Michigan State. Ryan Miller was the goalie at the time for Michigan State, and that was when I knew, because I think when I had gone to Western, I think it was like in the summer or something where they weren't playing yet, and it was just wild, like the students and stuff. Like that was what made a Western game, and I was like, just I can't believe I'm gonna play here. This is nuts.
Can I jump in there? Because
Absolutely.
I remember my recruiting trip because I broke my thumb and I actually got to go like during a hockey season, which like getting recruiting trips in college is an experience like none other, because I was the guy at Western Michigan that the coaches would, because obviously I played a lot, they played me a lot, so obviously I'm feeling good about everything that's going on. So, and out of our class, I was always the guy that was supposed to take out recruits, and I would always find out like how bad do we want this guy beforehand, and based on how bad they wanted him was like, you have
What's your budget?
Yeah, you have this type of budget for tonight. And man, there was some interesting evenings through my recruiting.
I mean, I remember going to the tap room on my recruiting visit and stuff. Like it was.
The tap room was a beautiful spot, eh? Because you listened to the Stretchy episode, eh? What a spot.
It's amazing what that place has, brought to probably everybody's life. And maybe that's fast forwarding too far, but it
is that where you met your wife?
No, but it is the precursor to where or how I met her.
Well, that's where Lisa and I first got funky with it, was out on the dance floor at the tap room. Yeah.
We met because Stretchy and I had come back from the tap room, and I remember getting dropped off in front of the Burnhams, and I get out of the car, and I still remember like Stretchy stepping one foot out of the back seat, and the person starts to drive away, but he's still in the back seat with just one leg on the pavement, and they are driving up his leg. And I'm yelling, we're all yelling, like, stop, like, back up. So luckily, like, Stretchy's probably not the most flexible person in the world, but he had enough,
he's pretty stretchy.
Yeah, but he probably had enough Jello juice in him at that point that he probably saved him from destroying his leg. So I finally get him out of this car, and, he's hobbling into the Burnhams. And in typical Stretch fashion, we get up the elevators, and you remember the quads at the end of the hall? Do you remember Big Joe?
Can't even breathe right now. Just listening to this story, I don't even know where it's going, but yes, I remember Big Joe.
He had a quad. He had one of those quads at the end of the hallway, and Stretchy.
Sorry, totally for the Bruce County listeners. This is a totally different Big Joe than the legendary Big Joe Haste around Kincardine, because that guy is a way bigger legend than the guy we're talking about. And I'm sorry the Big Joe you're talking about, but Big Joe Haste around Bruce County, this cat can shotgun like 20 beers straight and function, just carry on with life. But carry on. Sorry.
Well, our Big Joe was a huge hockey fan, and he was a big supporter for our team. So I got to give him at least a little bit of a shout out here, I suppose. But they had a quad at the end of the hall, and I remember get into my our dorm rooms on our floor, and in classic like Stretch fashion, he's like, "Go pick up the girls at the end of the hall." And then there's like that pause, and he's like, "And order us pizza." And the guy can't even walk, right? Because his leg just got like run over by a car. So the only thing I succeeded, I think, in that night was the ordering the pizza part, which again probably isn't a big shock. But yeah, that was like the first time I like met Aaron, was because Stretchy told me to go pick up the girls at the end of the hallway.
So that's how that. So your wife was one of the girls at the end of the hallway, because Lisa was at the end of the hallway too. She was also living on the third floor of the Burnhams, and I would. There was a door between the men's side and the women's side.
The Smith and the Burnham side, right?
Exactly. And we would just creep down there at night, wouldn't we?
Well, I mean, they're the other athletes, right? Like Lisa played soccer, if I remember correctly, right? Aaron ran track. So
yeah, well, we were all fit other than Wally, but
well, yeah, loosely.
Tough bounce for Lisa. Tough bounce. Sorry, honey. Working at it. Not really. I'm in the shed drinking beers from Foz right now. I guess I'm not working at it.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, that was early on, like in our freshman year. I mean, I remember going to school and thinking like, I had like a really good summer. Again, I have nothing going on in life. So I remember trying to train and whatever that meant back then, probably all stuff that like destroyed my body for later in life. And still like those few weeks at the beginning of school, like I couldn't even walk. My legs hurt so bad.
Oh man, the workouts we would do there was a month where you weren't allowed to practice, and if there were coaches on the ice, you couldn't have blades on your stick. So we would go out there with ringette sticks with no blades, and instead of running captain's practices,
just bag skate.
And instead of having captain's practice and trusting us as young adults to run a practice and try and get better at hockey, they determined that it was better to go out there with no blades on our sticks
and buckets at center ice
and just skate no pucks, pucks for a month every year for 4 years. I'm getting upset now. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to go for a walk here.
I don't know if I have to explain this too much to you, but as a goalie, like I get pucks shot at me, and it's tough to do that in a practice with no pucks. And then
what were you doing? Were you just skating too? I never paid attention to goalies.
Skated.
You guys are
skated, and then
I don't know what you guys are doing. Are you the first goalie on the podcast? I think you're the first goalie on the podcast. So cheers, buddy.
Just checking all the boxes, right?
Yeah, cheers for our first NHL player and our first goalie on the podcast. And folks, this is the first real look into a goalie's mind, because they are different, but we got a few coming on.
Those practices were really something. I mean, we did get to do those like little tournaments after sometimes, if I remember correctly. But by then you were so tired that they were essentially useless.
Oh man, we would skate and skate and skate, and then it was
and then run stairs or something.
Right. And like the most ridiculous part of the whole thing is like if they would have just let us have normal practices and treated us like adults, then maybe when we finally got a day off, we would have acted like more of adults. Because when we would get a day off, like I remember our first month at Western Michigan, we got a day off after our skates with no blades on our sticks, and there was a home football game, and I will never forget that day as long as I live. The first time you see a home football game at Western Michigan, which I never actually made it to the game. I'm just saying the town in general. It was incredible, wasn't it?
Oh, what was the old nickname, like Western?
Western, and like I remember Coos was the rig leader of those seniors our first year, and that guy could plan a party. He got us in all pennies, and we all had our hockey numbers with like football pennies on for the day. Do you remember that?
The I think back, so that was like when there was the hockey house, right? Like that place I think was barely standing by the time those guys moved out. I remember our first like we you got your like week of practice, like real, like with pucks. So I'd been on campus for a month, and this is the first time I'm seeing a shot from like a college player.
Because the coaches want to skate us instead of letting us practice without coaches on the ice. Folks, you're allowed to do normal practices if the coaches don't come on the ice. That is the only rule. Go ahead, Foss.
So I remember that like weekend, we play like like a Canadian university, I think was usually like how it went. We play like one exhibition game.
Yeah, you play one game. Yep.
My buddy comes up from Sarnia, like my best friend from Sarnia, Tyler, comes into town for that game. And I don't think I played like, let's say I played the first 2 periods of that game or whatever, but you faced like 3 shots.
Sorry, I have to tell a story right now because I'm pretty sure we're talking about the same person. Did he come to Western Michigan and play in golf tournaments? Did he play golf with us at Western Michigan at one point?
He's a good golfer.
Does he work? Yeah. Does he work at the border?
Yeah. Or he did.
Yes. So I was crossing the Sarnia border, and I just cruise up like it's everybody else. You show up at the border for the 1,000th time, and I give the guy my passport, and he says, "Wally?" I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "It's Foz's buddy, whatever." And I was like, "No shit, eh?" And it was the guy that had came and played in like a golf tournament with us at that one course in Kalamazoo, and then he became a border guy. So we're talking about the same guy. Carry on.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So
that's a random story for you, folks.
Yeah. Well, he came up, and I remember like, we end up at the tap room because that's where
that's what you
goes.
do. Yeah, because that's
what you do.
That's college hockey, baby.
Yeah. And I mean, admittedly, like a lot of that night's probably a bit of a blur in the old memory, but like I think I was being like carried on the lawn on like of the hockey house, and like, I don't know, the cops probably drive by, get like dropped from a bunch of people that stand in front of me. Like I think he said he like puked in Rosie's closet because I was passed out in a bed inside, and he fell asleep on the floor and ended up in the basement of that place, which I don't even remember that place having a basement. That sounds just wrong that people should be in the basement of that house.
I'm pretty sure I lived in the basement for a couple months.
I think you know how we used to have to like take kind of classes in the summer?
Yeah. Yeah. That's when we really became pros. Yeah.
Yeah. I think my intention was to live there one summer. But I think I ended up turning into like a nomad where I would just crash it.
No, you were already in love. You've been in love since the day you met her.
Right, but that meant
as soon as you met her, we didn't see you for the next 4 years at Western Michigan.
But that also meant that
you were heavy petted for 4 years.
But that also meant that I was probably really crashing at a track house, right? Versus living in the hockey house.
And what you're saying, our living standards aren't up to your quality, or what?
I mean, you should probably be saying that at this point in your life too, looking back on past Wally, right?
You're right. I've improved a lot, but the wife's been gone all weekend, and the house
it's regressing quickly.
Yeah, the house doesn't look that good. So I'm starting to realize what actually keeps the place rocking around here. It's not.
Yeah, I might want to Google the old house cleaning before she gets home.
Yeah, well, I was gonna Google or YouTube how to like do the laundry or something. Right?
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was an
Hey,
interesting transition uh from what it was like in junior, and kind of being away from the first time and living in the dorms. I think my mom still even jokes about, like, she didn't even know if I'd like eat any food, like when they like sent me off to school. And
the dorms were like a magical buffet every day, and Yahtzee Stretch and I couldn't control ourselves. I remember there was a cheese like fountain thing that Yahtzee was putting cheese on his nachos every day. And the coaches of Western Michigan think it's a good idea to live in the dorms. And like when they
2 years. We
when
had to
they
live in there for 2 years.
yeah, and when they say freshman 15, they ain't kidding. Like you actually put on 15. Like when Yahtzee was pretty much putting his mouth under the cheese sauce thing and just filling her up, right?
I I honestly think when we finally moved out of there, they should have gave Stretch the ice cream machine.
I don't even know what to say about that other than that's how you get chippy tits, Stretch.
I mean, although even looking back on it, I kind of want to install in my house like a blue Powerade machine.
So this is my third game in 3 nights, folks. And you know what? This is bringing back a memory of mine. Was Andrew Lord one morning when we were working out with Tyson Marsh and we were the two old fellows on the Cardiff Devils. He said to me, he said, "Do you realize you have the most consistent resume in minor pro hockey?" And I said, "No, I didn't realize that." He said, "You get 20 something goals a year and you get over a point a game every year." And he says, "You're consistent." And you know what I'm being right now? Is this is Sunday afternoon in the East Coast and I'm putting the body on autopilot. And look at, I even got the color back in my face now. I'm feeling better because catching up with you, man, is bringing back so many fun memories that, like, you meeting your wife when Stretch is getting drifted over by a car, like all of this stuff and like the spider web of hockey. I am just so happy to catch up with you, buddy, after this long.
Yeah, it's fun. It's amazing how you can just settle right back in, right?
It's like we haven't not talked in 14 years or however long it is, right? Like it's just like we're back in the U Club and we're sitting on the couch beside each other, and Yahtzee's got a stick trying to change the channel.
Yeah, with his cut up T-shirt on the wall, right?
What?
You remember his like cut up T-shirt on the wall from that disaster of a day of like running 17 miles or whatever they made us do our senior year?
Oh boy, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Well,
No, yeah, that's it.
yeah, that's probably another story for another day, but
that's a touchy subject there. That one. Yeah, we almost lost old Rito that morning. She almost, my college roommate almost died on us, but
we're all good.
I think that's his podcast. I think if
Yeah.
when Reed Yahtzee comes on to discuss playing for the Tavistock Royals in WOAA and Ross Yahtzee cutting John East, as we discussed on the last podcast, which was last night, folks, and this is 3-3. Can't stress that enough. But we're bringing the A game for Foz because we're a pro. So here we go. We got to talk about, we are not getting into the Blackhawks yet. I don't care how excited you are that you're an NHL alumni and all that bullshit, because we have so much more to talk about with Western Michigan. I want to talk about, because the first time we really started texting again, was after the stretch episode when we discussed you puking on the ice against Notre Dame. And I know you weren't feeling well before the game, and the coaches put you in a bad situation. However, you did puke in the middle of the ice after letting in a goal from center, and the whole crowd at Western Michigan, which was a bunch of students that were drinking and having fun at the time, had to watch you tip up your helmet, puke whatever your pregame meal was up all over the ice, and the whole crowd went, ew. And then I think you left the game after letting in a goal from center. Can you please tell that story?
Yeah. So there's probably a few details that make it, I don't know if it makes it better or worse. One, I think that was a TV game. So, you know, there was probably some
tough bounce there, eh?
Yeah.
That's when you get the new laces on the skates to make your skates look flashier, not puke on the ice, but go ahead.
Yeah, and the good news is I was probably like pre social media, so you don't have that kind of burning you there.
Well, that's that's a positive, because if what you did would have happened nowadays.
Oh yeah.
You would
that'd be
talking about going viral. You would have been more than viral, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, that would have been the end of it, right? The crazy part about that too is Piercy was in town for his recruiting visit that weekend. So Piercy and I played junior hockey together in Petrolia. So he's up for that weekend, and he's still playing in Petrolia, but going to come to Western. And the first weekend he's there, you know, I'm blasting it all over the ice. But
that's his recruiting trip.
That was his recruiting trip. And we had played 2 years together before that. So he comes into town, and on that Friday night, I give her all over the ice. So that night, I remember like going out, we go out for warm-ups, and I'm not feeling great. And I don't know what's up. I go in after warm-ups, I go into B's training room there, and I tell him like, I don't feel good. And in typical like B's fashion, he's not, you know him, he's not like a bullshitter. He's a great dude. And he's like, all right, well, you tell me what you want to do here. Like, and I'm like, all right, well, I guess
every player wants to play.
Yeah. So I guess I'm good enough to go. If you're not going to tell me I have to come out, I'm going to go.
Yep.
So I play the first period. And unlike probably many of my other college games, I think it goes okay. And but by the end of the first, like I'm like doubled over. I like one foot pushed it off the ice. And you remember like our home end was like straight shot to the door, like through, you know, not necessarily the best college setup, but like through that lobby underneath the tunnel there and then into the room. So I like one push it off after the first period and straight back into the training room. And I'm like, dude, I feel like I have glass in my belly.
Sorry,
so they bring in
glass in your belly.
It felt like just my insides just feel like they're ripping apart. So they bring in a doctor. Now I'm in full gear up on like the training table, got hands like all up underneath me. And the doctor looks at me and he says, I think you pulled an abdominal muscle. So if you think you hurt now, when you stop playing, it's going to hurt way worse. So I'm like, all right, well, the doctor just said it's only going to get worse from here. So I got to keep going. So I go back out for the second period. And yeah, I mean, what was it? Maybe Lebda?
Brett Lebda. Yep.
Rips one from, I don't know, the blue line, maybe
center.
Maybe
I was literally skating right behind him, and I watched it from center. I was
okay. So you're probably like
I went into forecheck. He gave me a shimmy shake. and he's coming out of the zone, and I'm behind him, and he takes like, I don't even think it was a slap shot.
So what I'm hearing is you were probably soft on the back check. And
no, that's not true. He shimmy shook me. He shimmy shook me.
Well, I mean, he was a pretty good NHLer, right? He had a decent time in the show.
Like he played in the NHL. I don't know if he was like good at it, but
well, anyway, he lets
he scored on you, that's for sure.
Yeah. So he's shooting, and as that puck's on its way to the net, pregame meal's on its way up. And I know that the timing didn't seem right.
Was that pasta?
No, I think I was doing steak Sammy's at that point.
Well, it was all over the ice, bud.
Oh man, so that puck goes ripping by me as my pregame meal's on its way up from the belly. And I remember like I get the helmet up and just give her on the ice. And B comes running from the bench because now, I've been in the training room twice that night saying like, I don't feel good. So B comes out and he doesn't say a single thing to me other than we get off the ice.
Dude, there were thousands of college students all having a good time. They were all drinking and having fun. Like, I don't think there were Yetis back then. I know there weren't, but whatever cups they were filling. Everybody was having a good time.
That was back when
you showed everybody your pregame meal.
That was back when like Lawson was like the place to be on like Fridays and Saturday nights. I mean, you remember going to games and like we'd be showing up, you're coming a couple hours before the game or whatever it was, and the line would be like around the rink to get in.
When we were good. Yeah, I remember it. Yeah.
When it was fun to be at Lawson.
Yeah, and everybody wanted to be there, and it was incredible. And that was our first couple years there. Yeah.
The best part about that moment though is I've already puked on the ice once. B comes running out and he's like, get off the ice. And I literally, I think, gave him like the 1 second sign, gave her one more time on the ice, and then bolted. And I had to skate from like the far, because I was in the far end because it was the second period. I had to skate from like the Zamboni end all the way, like 3 zones down the ice, run down the tunnel. And I don't know how long I was in that lobby. First garbage can I found, I was just pregame meal just over and over and over again.
Those damn steak Sammys.
So that, yeah. But to top that off, do you know, or do you remember that was Marv's? That was Marv's first college game because he was backing me up that night. So Marv hadn't played, like he didn't play at 1 minute the freshman year. Now we're in like whatever, a couple months into our sophomore year. So Marv's first college minutes is in like a crease that I just threw up all in.
Okay. Fair enough. It was a hell of a shot by Brett Lepta. He really took it. He really.
I mean, I don't know. Was I gonna stop it like without throwing up? I don't know. Maybe not.
I mean, I think you could have got in front of it, but you didn't.
Yeah.
So
that night, I think we end up winning like, I don't know, let's call it 8-6.
Crying now. I'm sorry, I can't even control myself. This is 3 games and 3 nights, folks.
Before I left the rink, before I left Lawson that night, I was handed a case of Powerade and told, if you don't make weight in the morning, like if we had those weigh-ins, you remember? If you don't make your weight back by morning, you're going on an IV to play Saturday night.
I remember taking an IV to play in a game when I had some kind of virus that went around. Not the one going around now, but I think it was called like the Norwalk virus. I had some kind of weird.
Oh yeah, the one that went around the dorms.
Yeah, and I got that, and I was laying on the floor of the bathrooms of the dorms for a full night, and then we went to Northern Michigan the
Northern
next day.
of
And
all places.
do you remember?
Like
I slept on the floor of the bus all the way to Northern, and I was like basically dying. And then I got off the bus and played the game, and
so I
but
remember
then they got
when,
mad at me for not playing well.
I remember when we would go up there, or that weekend, because that was running through the dorms, because it was like the cruise ship virus or whatever. And again, probably shockingly, I was like a front of the bus sitter.
Goalies.
Yeah. I remember, like, it's just like triage of guys laying in the floor of the bus
Yeah.
and being told, if any one of these guys goes in the bathroom is now off limits to everybody else.
I was like, literally, I felt like I was dying. I remember the night in the dorms when it first hit me, and we hadn't even left for Northern Michigan yet. We still had to do a 10-hour bus trip, and I literally was sleeping under like 4 stalls or whatever. There'd be like 4 shitters all beside each other, and I was laying on the floor with like my pants up, my ankles, like dying because of this virus. And yeah, we played the next night, and then they got mad at me for not being as good as I was.
In fairness and hindsight, like, we didn't really win too many road games anyways, so it was probably just another.
We needed the Lost and Lunatics. We all needed them because we all wanted, every guy in that team wanted to win a Saturday night at home so we could all have fun, because those were the best nights I've ever had. Like Saturday nights after winning in Lawson with the Lunatics, and then going back to the U Club, like, it was incredible, wasn't it?
We were honestly like Jekyll and Hyde. It was 2 different teams. Like, there was nothing better than a game at Lawson Arena. Like, I remember a game, it was probably maybe our like sophomore year. We're playing Michigan at home, and those were like the Michigan States, like those were the weekends that, like, this, forget about us, like that was when the students really got like jacked up, because they were probably like pissed that they were at Western Michigan going to school instead of at Michigan or Michigan State.
And
like,
they've
no
all
offense to
grown,
Western.
they've all grown up wearing their Michigan and Michigan State hoodies,
Right. And I mean,
whatever.
I'm a super proud Bronco to this day. Like, I love the school, and I'm over the fact that we didn't win. Like, there's so much that I got from like that time of our life. Like, I got a wife and 2 kids or whatever. Maybe that's sappy to say, but I'm just over the other stuff that kind of went down outside of that. But like, we'd play those weekends, and I remember going to the rink, like the lines around the arena, it's like snowing in the middle of winter. They're giving the students like pizza and hot chocolate and stuff because they won't let them in. And we're like up on the concourse, and then they finally realized, like, it, because you remember we used to go upstairs to like stretch or throw the football around and stuff like that. And all of a sudden they like let all the students in.
And
you're like, yeah,
chaos.
and then you're trying to get ready to play. You're in socks now. It's like snow everywhere, and like, how do you not just like get like jacked to play? Like, your adrenaline just goes like through the roof on those nights. Like, and then you go into Michigan the next night to play, and they just pound you for like 15 to make up for the night before.
Yeah, they definitely we definitely heard their goal song a few times when we played in Michigan there.
This might be fast forwarding past like our playing time. It might have been like when I was in grad school, like working with the team and stuff, like the year prior. So sorry for jumping ahead maybe a little bit. There was a practice we were going to go play at Michigan. And again, if this was when we played, just correct me, but full practice, Michigan fight song on repeat.
No, I don't think I was a part of that, but I've been a part of weird stuff. Like there was a time in Cardiff where the coach played loud fan noises on the speaker to try and get us pumped up for the Challenge Cup finals. And he was like, this is what it's going to be like. It's going to be this loud. And it was so annoying. We had to practice and play a scrimmage with like just annoying fans screaming on the speaker. So yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that was something in them. But yeah, I mean, my time, I mean, for me, most of my playing time was, or actually all of my playing time was like our first couple of years there. I think I maybe played half the games or so my freshman year, and probably more so like the full starter probably my second year or sophomore year. Before
Mantua was there the first year, right? And was he gone the second year, or was he still
he
there?
was there the both years. The second year though, Mike was, yeah, I was playing, and that was when it like bubbled over even more so with him and the coaching staff. So then Marv started
being the backup.
That year. But I remember like rooming with Mike, even like the first weekend, I think we played maybe Bowling Green, something like that. First weekend, for like my first game I played was our first game as freshmen on the road. And like he knew people every place we went. Like
Mantua did?
Yeah, everywhere we went.
Because he's from Michigan, right?
Yeah, but like seemingly everywhere he went, he like knew people. And I remember him just like leaving the hotel to be like, I'm going to meet up with some people. I'm like, oh, okay. Like I've never been to this. I didn't even know, like, I don't even know where I am. Like,
no, I totally agree. We just get off the bus and we'd be like, well, this is a new rink and this is a new town. Like that, and then this is a nice restaurant for lunch. That's all we do, right? We're like sheep. You go in and out of buildings and they just tell you where to go.
Yeah. And then you'd be like, you just remember places by like, like Northern had that really good bread that they dip straight in butter or like whatever. Like that's the only things you remember about the places you're going is because the food was either good or bad.
You don't know anything about the towns you go to. You only know about the hotel and the food.
No, and other than like you have the last name Foster, so they're making every joke is about like Foster's beer.
Okay, well, I think we got sidetracked again. So we talked about puking. Okay, before we get into your NHL days, I wanted to bring up your relationship with Marv, who was a walk-on goalie. And you guys, so you're a full ride guy, he's a walk-on, and you are the starter the first 2 years. Marv gets some starts later on in our careers, but you guys were still like best friends through the whole thing. And I think that means a lot about the two of you, that you're both just good people, because I've had the similar relationships where like when I was in the coast, me and the other guy that would get called up or sent down, me and him were best buddies. And it was basically like me and him competing with each other. So can you please explain that? And don't go to dead air because I'm going outside to pee and I need you to keep talking until I'm back. Okay?
Thank you. Fair. Yeah. I mean, like for Marv and I mean, we didn't have any clue about each other until we met. I mean, our orientation weekend. We were paired together in the dorms that first year, probably just because we were both like the weird goalies. I mean, would be paired with one of us? Probably not. But yeah, it was it's weird that it's a guy you're competing with for playing time with. You probably have a bit of a leg up. You probably have a bit of a leg up in the whole thing because you're a full ride guy versus like it's different because it's really a recruited walk on. It's not just like some guy off the street that just showed up at a tryout. I mean, Marv was recruited to go to Western. But I mean, you're not in control of what, I mean, sure, your play and your practice or whatever the deciding factors are, but I mean, your teammates at the end of the day, I think a lot of times people put goalie relationships as like it's one versus the other, and maybe there is some of that, but ultimately, like at the end of the day, you're a team, and like if Marv got a start, yeah, I wanted my net back or whatever, but and that's gonna like push you to like try to be better or whatever. But when he's in there playing, like you're gonna be the first one. I'm gonna be the first one like to run out there if he wins and pat him on the back, or if things don't go well, to like, you know, be there to support him or whatever. But like whatever is happening at the rink is staying there, and you know, your friends off the ice. Like that's just what it being a team is. Like everybody on a team is competing for ice time. Like if you're a fourth liner playing like a couple minutes or a couple shifts a game, you're really competing against like a first liner. Like that's playing 20 minutes a night. It's not really that much different. It's just goalie's a unique position because you play like the whole game typically. You know, you hope.
I find it very interesting myself, and thank you for continuing on. So everybody that listened to the John East episode will understand that there's nothing wrong with their headphones. I just went pee. But like, I get it, man. Like your teammates, your friends, that's just the position you're playing. But like, I don't think I would handle being a goalie well. I'm too I don't know. I don't. It's such a different position than what everybody else plays. I'm so competitive that like when we went to Western Michigan, I was like, I got to be better than Vince. When I was in Elmira, I'm like, I got to be better than Nuggets. When I went to the Dayton Bombers, I was like, I got to try and be better than Yannick Tifu, who was incredible. Like, and it was always like I had a guy that was like the bar, and I was like, I got to be better than him. But for a goalie, there's so much that's even out of your control because the coaches are going to decide who's playing anyways. So like there's not much you can do anyways, right? Except support each other.
Right. And there's no like, and this isn't like a knock on other guys on the team, but it's not like I can go to Brent Walton and think that he knows what I'm dealing with, and I can't expect him, like he shouldn't expect me to know what he's dealing with. Where it's completely different like dynamics of what's taking place. You're almost playing like an individual sport amongst a team sport, right?
Yeah, like goalies are totally different, and that's what I think. It can't be understated that you are the first goalie on the podcast, which is a big deal, and the first NHL hockey player, which we haven't even got to yet.
Well, there was a week, I don't know if it was Marv's first start or how it was, but I remember early in the week in practice, literally being told, like, just so you know, like this week you're competing with him about who's going to start Friday night.
It changes everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, like,
instead of just going through practice like nothing.
And like that week of practice, like at that point in that season, like I had been playing like, I don't know, it was just your net, right? Like, and I'm not defending that I was always deserving of it, but it's also probably not like a great healthy mindset to like think on a Monday, like, we practiced 4 days before you played, that every single moment of that practice, you feel like you're just being like judged, right? Like we didn't necessarily always have like the greatest practice schedules that were the most friendly for players or goalies. I mean, heck, we were doing battle drills and morning skates.
Yeah, like, and having you on and having Stretch on, I realized, I guess, what some of the stories are that might come out and like what our real lives were like. But yeah, you're right. Like, there were times where we were full kamikaze, like trying to kill each other in pregame skate, like the morning of a game. Actually, like, I think we were even fighting each other.
Like there were, and maybe this is an indication of like the equipment from that era too, which isn't that long ago, but like I'd be done a morning skate and I have like ice bags on myself. Like maybe I'm gonna step on the toes of what we'll talk about soon, but like I've participated in like NHL morning skates, and the goalie who is playing that night is out there for like 8 minutes.
Well,
Like,
and it's up to him. He gets what he wants, right? Like,
right.
he gets to be a grown up and decide like what he needs, instead of people like force feeding you what they think you need. And I think that's what our college life was. I think the practices without blades on our sticks, I think, what we're talking about now, I think all of it was they didn't trust us to be adults. So when they gave us a day off, we showed them exactly how much we were not adults.
Yeah, that's like the child parent relationship, right? Like maybe the less leash you give, the more they're gonna rebel when they do get a little bit of it.
I absolutely, like, it wasn't like there weren't empty threats. That was like, if you're gonna make us do all this, um and when you're willing to give us a day off, we're gonna show you what a day off means there, big guy, right?
But yeah, I mean, like that, I just think back to that like week, and it's like it like admittedly, like I probably crumbled. Like, I mean, that's like the fact, like Marv got the start Friday night because I was probably junk all week because
You were stressed about the competition.
I don't know if you're stressed about the competition or whatever, but like probably like
You're not like me. You're wired differently than me. I
you're
like, if the coaches said that to me, I would probably spear the guy in the throat. But
right, and that's, everybody is like different, but I think we were again, it's one of those like odd moments where you think back and it's like those are like the vivid times of like we were playing Ferris, which was, I mean, we played a bunch of big name schools, but Ferris was like a huge rival. And we went to Ferris the Friday night, and I think I just sat on the bench and stewed, right? Like you knew that no matter what you did all week, that decision was probably already made.
yep. Well, when you grow
you
up,
don't know
and
what to think,
yeah,
right? Like you're like, I could have been the best all week. Would I have ever played to begin with? And I don't think we had much success when we played Ferris ever in Ferris. And so the Saturday night when you get the nod back to play, you play a good game at home. But again, it's back at home in Lawson. Like it's a different beast. Like being on the road or home. Like
different Broncos in front of you, hey?
Right. So it's like, how do you judge? Like, is it really that you were better because you sat Friday night, or was it because you weren't playing in front of Ferris? You were playing in front of
or it's because you're not playing in front of Stretch, Reed, and Wally in front of the Lawson Lunatics, where we know we can host a party if we win, right?
I mean, there was
Some of those parties were incredible, were they not?
they were something out of the Guinness Book, right?
And you participated in most of them. There was a
Probably,
time
I would say I was probably a fringe player, but
you were there, you were part of it, you were still part of it. Like even the nights where you know what, hockey had got you down, the coaches had got you down, the situation had got you down, but you know what? You were still a part of it when the music was rocking and the Foz came a knocking, eh?
yeah, I mean,
There were some interesting nights.
yeah, that's the U Club has a tendency to do that.
Yeah, what a time.
I mean, so like that, I mean, again, but the bulk of all of my playing time was like those first couple of years. When Danny came in, that was the end of it. I mean, maybe somewhat deservingly so, I lost the net, but that my junior year when I didn't play like a single second and was basically like the third guy, that was probably the toughest year of hockey I've ever had in my entire life.
I couldn't imagine, dude. I remember it happening, and like Danny Bellissimo, which Vince is his brother, who's going to come on. They're both going to come on eventually, but like, so you lose your net to him, who comes in as another full ride guy 2 years later, whatever. But then Marv also is just a competitor, and that guy works and he gives her. And then all of a sudden, they're not even having you back up games. Like, what's that like mentally? Because I can't imagine, because I was living a different life in college, right? Like like we've said, you were a goalie, I was a player. What goes through my mind through college is completely different than what's going through your mind.
What I think, like, obviously that's like brutally hard. And at the same time, like I respect both of those guys a ton. Like at no point was I ever like, I hate these guys because they've leapfrogged me. Like that's not at a moment in my life that I've ever thought. But what's the hardest part is, I don't know, I've won games at the college level. I've won games at home. I had won games on the road against tough teams.
You had been a starter for 2 years. Like you were, yeah.
So the hard part for me to digest was nothing to do with those two players. It was our team was trending worse. Right? Like if you look from where we were at our freshman year, our sophomore year, to where we finished as seniors, it didn't plateau, it went down.
Oh, it still pisses me off.
And that to me was the hardest part to accept. Was, again, and this isn't to those players, it was we aren't winning. I have won. Why are you not at least giving me a chance to try to win a game?
Yeah, why am I not getting a chance?
And that's not to say like I'm better than this player, because if I I look back, Dan's a better goalie than me. Like that, he's a better player. He's more talented than me. Like that, I don't have a problem saying that. I know that. But at the end of the day, I've won. why are you not letting me get a chance to try to win?
Yeah, like why, where's this the second chance?
Like, where is the conversation of like, you're competing with your roommate?
Yeah.
Like that was the part that I struggled with the most our junior year.
I think it's transparency. And I've done the same thing with my, I guess you'd call it, department in the real world now, where I run. What did you just do there? What you just
I'm on my kid's iPad and it's gonna shut off.
so what are you doing? Is
I'm
it gonna
turning.
keep working?
Yeah, I'm good.
I forget where I was going with that, but what I was
We're good. Sorry.
No, I don't know what I was gonna say.
We were talking about like the transparency of like
Oh.
situation stuff.
I just think I think telling the truth is really the only way to go about things. And like for my team now in the real world, like me telling them what's actually going on and like where we're really at, and basically being transparent with them, I think has been huge. And I have a great team, and it's like I have a championship hockey team, but we don't play hockey. We do something else. But like I have the people that would make up a championship team, right? Like, and that's what you need.
Yeah, and that's I think what I struggled with most is like every time we'd lose, you're like, just why not? Like, why, like, especially when they start to rack up, you're like, why not just try it? Like, it's another loss if it doesn't work.
Well, and like you played 2 years and they just decided like you're
Nope.
not getting another start. You're not getting another start. It doesn't matter how many losses we get. You are not starting another game. And that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to you. And I can't imagine what it's like in your bedroom in the U Club compared to mine, because it's completely different, right? Like when you're going to bed at night, what's going through your head is completely different than what's going through my head.
Yeah, and like I said, like I can look back on it and I know like Dan's more talented. Like that's fine. I get that. I can accept that fact, but it's just it starts to snowball in your brain, right? And I remember like finishing that junior year, and now we're headed into our senior year, and they brought in a fourth guy. Do you remember?
Oh, Messing or something?
Yeah.
Is that the name?
Yeah, I mean, so at this point now, Dan's come in and played almost exclusively, and now we're bringing in another guy who's supposedly the next coming of Jesus.
And Marv's still around.
Marv's around, and I'm around. So we have 4 guys, but with one guy who played probably nearly every minute of our junior year. And oddly, that was like the best summer I had probably in my like entire life. Like I trained, I would say appropriately, minus that stupid challenges that we had all assigned to us, running and stretching, and I had like 1,000 squats that I had to do or whatever it was.
I had to do all of them. I had to do that too. Yeah.
Yeah. And
sumo squats.
I had Hindu squats.
Yeah, that's what they were called. Yeah, you had to jump forward, do a full squat, and jump back, and we had to do. I think it was 100 of them, and like
I had 1,000 that I had to do. I was going to the gym twice a day, once to do real workouts and once to just do squats. Of this squats. but the biggest thing for me was that summer I went to a goalie camp with Mitch Korn, who is he's like the goalie whisperer. He was Dominic Hasek's goalie coach when he was winning all the Hearts and Vezinas in Buffalo, and he's been all over the NHL. He's amazing. So I with Al, who was our goalie coach through the bulk of our time at Western, Al was working at Mitch Korn's camps in the summers. So I went up to Buffalo for a week with Mitch Korn's camp, and there was a sports psychologist that he brought in too, again, because this guy was an NHL goalie coach. He was plugged in. And I remember sitting in some of like the sessions with this sports psychologist, and it was, again, maybe it did nothing for me as like a hockey player, because obviously like you've seen my elite prospects thing. There's a whole bunch that's like did not play. But just like life in general, it was about just learning about like, you know, you got to certain levels because you can play. Like
you grow up and you
right. And it was just about learning how to like mentally cope with different things and the stuff that worrying about. It's a lot of the same things you hear about like worrying about stuff that you can control, and like the decisions are going to be made outside of like what you're doing, and like you can't control that. So just kind of reset. And I think a lot of things snowball, like when you're playing a lot, like when things go well, I think I got hung up on like, I've got to replicate everything I did on like, if I played a good game, I've got to do everything that I did on that good game. I got to do it again, like to the second. And that's exhausting.
I could see you being one of those guys that was trying to recreate like the day they had when they had a good game. I could see that, but
right.
What I actually want to bring up is how tight your shirt is. Like, how are you that in shape? Like, how old are you now?
39. So my last year in my 30s.
You're wearing a shirt that tight, and like you look, I believe, like we discussed this week, is the word is yoked. You look yoked. Do you know what that word is?
I'm not that old to not know. I wish I knew.
So you know what that is?
Yeah. I wish I knew what I know now back when we were in school, because I think not that I would have been destined.
Everybody wishes that. Everybody wishes that.
Yeah, it's amazing how evident that becomes like every day, right?
I mean, like the guys that like I'm standing here and like my knee hurts. Like it hurts all the time. And I'm thinking of
probably like, all those like max rep cleans or whatever, right?
Like all of it, right? And like it was like if a coach asked you to do something, you did it. It didn't even matter if it made sense. It didn't matter if it was a good idea. If a coach asked you to do something, you did it. And that's the way we grew up.
Yeah. And I mean, that's sort of what I learned kind of that summer was hockey was fun at some point, right? Like it wasn't fun anymore, really. It was becoming not fun. And I kind of learned in that moment, like, forget it. Like, I'm going to go and I'm going to play and I'm going to enjoy hockey for what it is. And I'm going to enjoy like what I'm experiencing at the rink with my teammates. And I'm not going to worry about all the other crap that's going along, because I don't get to make those decisions. So screw it.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
like that, my senior year again, like our senior year, I felt as good as I had going into a season, probably my entire time there.
But you never got a chance to actually get the net.
Well, ironically, I got a couple minutes. I got to play a period in an exhibition or a non-conference game. I got shelled for I got pumped for 3 goals or whatever. And I remember like it's a couple power play goals or whatever. And that was the last of like my playing time. Like I never got a sniff again. And it's those times where maybe I didn't take advantage of an opportunity. I don't know. Like
I think I personally, I'm going to say this now so you know. I think you did everything you possibly could. I think they made their mind up when we had lost our second year that they were making a change, and it didn't matter what you did. It didn't matter how hard you worked. It didn't matter how good you were at practice. It didn't matter how good you were as a teammate. They had made up their mind, and it is not on you, sir.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's what I learned that summer is go out and play. Hockey is a great game. You're going to get the game has given me so many things. It doesn't owe me anything in life at all. It's given me so much. And it gave me that, like, it almost gave me like relief. Like I didn't stress about it anymore. And I look back to like that whole season, and you probably didn't participate in this because it would have been extending, like, I don't mean this in any disrespect, but like I'd be on the ice after playing like those 3-on-3 games or whatever, after practice and after morning skates and stuff. That was so much fun to me because it was the point that I got like, like that was my games now. Like that was you got to compete and there was score being kept, and like, it was weird because now we had like 4 goalies. Obviously Danny was playing, so he wasn't competing for that, but there wasn't any way, and maybe this is what I needed to know 3 years or 4 years earlier, but there was nobody that was going to take that like 3-on-3 after practice away from me. Like that was my net. I wanted to play it. I needed that. So again, maybe that's like one of those life lessons that I wish I learned like earlier. But it was just, I don't know, it was tough. Like, especially again, it's still, you're not winning and you're still part of the team. And
Okay. Stop it. Stop.
Oh, I'm sorry. Maybe I'm getting too dark. Is that what's...
Yeah, no, you're getting too real.
I think what's happening.
You're getting too real, which is what all these podcasts are, is that we're getting
so
too real.
I think where we're headed is that zone in my elite prospects where it's from 2006 to 2018 where it says like did not play.
Right. So that's where we're at. We're here. We're here
I
now.
want to jump in. Can I jump into that point? I think
absolutely. Go for
what's
it. What's
happening?
This is your podcast. Here, it's for you.
What's happening here is you are getting sucked into like mainstream websites that like track my playing career or whatever. But if you would jump over to Johnny's Ice House in Chicago, you would find like 500 plus beer league hockey games played, with a pretty good winning percentage, if I don't say so myself.
To be honest, you're starting to sound American. Like you're starting to have an accent, like you're actually American now. Like, what is going on over there? Are you okay? Do you need to come back to Sarnia for a little bit?
I do. I haven't been home in over a year. So
my wife's dealing with the same thing. Like her family is across the border, and it's been very hard for her. And It sucks for everybody. We miss everybody over there. Um, and hopefully we're back soon, right?
Yep, I got the tank filled in the car. The moment they say I can go home, I'm going home. So
Sorry, hold on. Who's tank? What?
no, the car is filled up and ready to go. I'm ready to go home the
Oh,
moment they say I can go home.
oh, okay. Yeah, okay. You're gonna go see. I remember your parents. They were beauties. So yeah, no, like it sucks. So anyways, that was our college experience. We've kind of gone through it. I think we've covered enough of it. But now it is time to get into uh the night. I'm literally making, I think, craft dinner with the kids, and they're watching TV, and Stretchy texts me and says, Foz is playing goalie for the Chicago Blackhawks against the Winnipeg Jets, and he just stopped Patrick Laine. And I thought, Stretch is an interesting character. Um, there's no way this is true. Why would he text me something like this if it isn't true, right?
Yeah, I mean, Stretch is an amazing storyteller, but that seems even outside of his wheelhouse.
To come
Yeah,
up with that out of nowhere, that didn't make sense to me.
yeah, it's kind of weird. Like the whole reason I even got involved in that stuff is like a couple of years before like that night even happened. I got a email or phone call about being on this like emergency goalie backup list or whatever. And it's not, at this point, I'm very well rooted in being an accountant and a husband and a father and a beer league goalie. So at this point, it's just like a footnote, a funny story to tell people that you're like on this list of people that an NHL team could call to potentially enter a game.
You're not a beer league goalie. You're a Division I college athlete. And like, if you play beer league, you're a lot different than the goalies I'm playing beer league with. So don't sell yourself short there, big guy.
Yeah, well, all roads in hockey lead to beer league. So at that point, I'm a beer league player. And I mean, if you probably have no recollection of this whatsoever, but there was a game like down in Florida. I think the Leafs were playing the Panthers. Luongo got hurt, went to the hospital. Montoya, which is like a throwback from our time at Western, enters the game. He blows out his groin. They're thinking of they have now goalies now. They're thinking of putting in their goalie coach who had played in the NHL like 15 years earlier. They end up bringing Luongo back from the hospital, has to finish the game. So the NHL says we've got to have like a contingency plan. So they land on, you got to have a list of people you could call if you have like no goalies left for someone to come and play. And so that's how I got involved in this, because I was playing down at a rink here in Chicago where the Hawks practiced at. They called the owner of the rink and said, we have this league rule. We got to put a list together. Who do you know that could be on this list? So he threw my name out there. And so the Hawks contacted me and said, would you be on this list? And I was like, sure. Like, I'm not going to play in the NHL. Like, like this.
You sure did.
Yeah. I'm like this. So I think like it was that was probably 2015. So Aaron and I, we already had our first daughter. We're expecting our second. We're on we were out like in the city on an anniversary like date night for the last time, probably for years.
Yeah,
and
nobody's been
I'm
on
getting
date night in a while.
So I'm getting like emails from the Blackhawks while we're in the city about being on this emergency goalie list. And again, I think it's just like, sure, I'll do it, but it's just like a funny story to tell, right? And years go by where it's just like the beginning of seasons, they check in like, hey, can we keep your name on this list? I'm like, sure, just like last year, like I'll see you in a year when you email me again or whatever. So headed into like a couple of years go by like that, and they headed into like the 17-18 season. I get it the same email, so I respond the same, like, yep, you can keep me on the list. A couple weeks go by, I get another follow-up email and said, all right, rules have changed. It's no longer just being on this list. You got to be at the games. And my gut instinct is I'm out. Like now it's a commit, like now it's like a thing.
It's too busy. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm probably 35 at the time. Couple kids. I'm
Too busy.
I'm still playing. I got a job. Like that's a young man's game.
Sorry, did you say you're still playing like the beer league? That you're still playing?
Yeah, I mean, like I'm playing beer league. Kids got stuff going on. I got a job. I don't need to add like going to this game like for nothing to this list of chaos.
Yeah.
And again, like still playing is not, I'm not trying to like say that I'm making money off of life.
Carry
playing
on
the game. And so I'm ready to email back, like, count me out. Aaron's the one that says, no, you're in. You know you want to do it. So stop being a hero saying no and just say yes like you really want to and go to the games. And I'm like, all right, you called my bluff. I'm in.
Good for her. Good for her. Good
so
for her.
Yeah, I mean that's on her, right? She knew, she saw right through that in a heartbeat. I mean, it wasn't much of a conversation as it was like, you're saying yes because you know you will resent me for the rest of our lives because you said no.
Can you imagine if it would have been a different guy?
I don't know. Fate is what it is, I suppose. But so I respond back, all right, I'll do it. It turns out like the person who's now that season that's coordinating stuff is a girl by the name of Megan Hunter, who is of the same family of like Dale Hunter, Mark Hunter, like that hockey Hunter family. She grew up in Petrolia, where I'm from. I skated growing up at like, her dad ran conditioning skates and stuff in the
Dale
summertime.
or Mark, or who's the dad?
There's another brother in that. So those are her uncles.
Okay.
So we end up like talking a bit and stuff about just the fact that it, again, back to like that whole like small hockey world, right? Like, how are these two people from like small town Canada like meeting up in Chicago, just like random rule in the NHL, like connecting people. So I tell her like, all right, fine, I'm in. And she gives me like, look at our schedule, tell me all the games you'll take, basically. So I think I took, like 12 or 15 games. Of course, I took the home opener that year. And take a bunch of other games like through the schedule. So during that season, I'm going to games. I'm parking, you park down with the players, like at the loading dock. I'd walk in, drop my gear off downstairs with Frankie, the parking lot attendant, jump on the elevator, ride it straight up in the UC to the upper, like as high as you can go to the press box. I'd sit with basically like the scout / assistant coaches of the Hawks, the goalie coach. I'm completely anonymous. Again, you know me, Wally. I'm a pretty I'm not an outgoing person. I'm literally just sitting there quietly watching these games from like a perch, which for me is like, that's enough. Like this made it worth it. Like I'm just going to games. I'm anonymous watching NHL hockey games from like the top of the UC. And then at the end of the game, I would just ride the elevator back down, hop in my car and drive home. Like UC is only 15 minutes from where I live.
And you get a free NHL hockey game.
You get a free NHL hockey game, you know, a handful of times a month or whatever, free meal that night. I don't know. Doesn't seem like a bad deal to me.
No, it doesn't seem like a bad deal to anybody.
So during that season, one of the, I think it was like let's say it was a Sunday. I'm at where the kids have swimming lessons at the YMCA. So I grab a workout while one of the kids is in the pool, and then I got to take my youngest daughter in the pool. So while I'm working out, I get a call from the Hawks and say, hey, you might be needed tonight. Like, can you come to the rink? And it wasn't a game that I was like scheduled to be at or whatever. So I'm like, okay. They're like, it might be for the Canadiens, the Montreal Canadiens. So I'm like, all right, yeah, it's fine. I can make it if they call or whatever. Just give them my number, whatnot. So then I'm in the pool and I give Aaron my phone and I'm like, if my phone rings and it's a weird number, pick it up. So I'm now in the pool at a YMCA. Aaron's in the viewing deck up top. And she's like waving her arms and she's like, it's the Montreal Canadiens. Like, you got to go to the United Center tonight. And I'm just like swimming with a little, like, you know, a couple-year-old kid.
Oh, you'd
like,
be bobbing them up and down. Like,
yeah,
look
like,
at Johnny
like,
Appleseed.
okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Cool. I might have to dress for an NHL game tonight. So I get out of the pool and get cleaned up or whatever. We're riding in the car home. My oldest daughter, I say, hey, you know, like, I gotta go to the Hawks game tonight. And she's a smart kid. And she's like, I didn't think you had she knows like my schedule or whatever. She's like, I didn't think you had a game tonight. And I'm like, well, I might have to dress for the Canadiens, Montreal Canadiens. She's like, Dad, you can't do that. And I was like, I'm pretty sure I can. And she's like, nope, we're Leafs fans and you can't dress for the Canadiens. And I was like, well, I appreciate your, your commitment to that allegiance, but I'm going to overrule you on this for wearing an NHL jersey tonight. So I went that game. I get to the rink, and what had really happened was the night before, ironically, again, a flashback to like goalies I had played against, Montoya had taken a Dustin Byfuglien slap shot to the forehead, and they didn't know if he was like going to be able to even dress. So I got to the rink. They deemed him good enough to back up. So I just sat upstairs again, so I went there thinking I was going to dress for the Canadiens, didn't play or didn't dress at all. Sitting beside the goalie who was like the scheduled emergency goalie that night, which was super awkward. Well, Montoya ended up dressing. So it was like some guy who was like really the emergency goalie. I watched this game with this kid and he's like, why are you here? And I was like, well, because the Canadiens called me to potentially dress. And he's like, then why am I here? So anyway, that was what I thought was like the pinnacle of this whole experience was. I'm like, I got pretty close to getting to dress. So this was worth it. So the season kind of goes along. I'm doing games or whatever, few games a month. And I have my last game scheduled. And it's like March. I do my normal day. I go to work. I bike down to the train, drop the kids off at daycare, school and stuff, get on the train, ride it into the city, work a full day, ride the train home, get on my bike, pick up the kids, get home, wait for Aaron to get home, grab my bag of equipment, throw it in the car, and drive to the UC. On my way to the UC, I get a phone call, and it's one of the like assistants to the GM, and he was like, "Where are you?" I'm like, "On my way to the game. I have a life. Like, I'm trying to get to the game. I'm sorry, I'm not there yet." And he's like, "All right, like, as soon as you get here, like, you don't go upstairs. Like, you need to come down to the room because you might have to dress." And so I get to the rink, and the parking attendant is in just like he's stressed. So he's like, "Tell me exactly how to spell your last name." And I'm like, "Okay." So I tell him. He's like, "All right." And there's people downstairs to meet me. So my equipment is grabbed right off my shoulder, and I'm walked around to go into the room. And now I'm standing there. They're explaining to me like, "Okay, the goalie who was supposed to start tonight got hurt." He's like, "So we don't exactly know what you need to do yet, but the other guy's going to start." And they're wavering on whether I should sign like a contract, because you can, when you're at these games, you can play for either team. Like, you're not just like the Hawks guy or the road teams guy. Like, you're just there in case anybody needs you. And the moment you sign, if for some reason the other team lose both their guys, like, they would need you. So they decide like, "All right, sign this contract." So I don't, you don't read any of it. You just sign on the dotted line, right? Like, and then I head into the room, and like they already have like a nameplate on a stall for you.
Shut up. Seriously?
Yeah, they literally printed one. It looked exactly like every other stall in the room. They've got a jersey ready for you, name bar, name, number, whole deal. My gear was already set up.
What? How
Yeah.
did they do that so fast?
That is I don't know. It's like little elves working behind the scenes that just like on a moment's notice can do things.
What the? That's nuts.
So I get into the room.
That's a shout out to all the equipment managers in the professional hockey world, because I tell you what those people do. I've never talked about it before. Deese is one of my best buddies, but like those guys, they give her, man. Those guys give her.
It was incredible, right? Like, okay, I get the whole like putting a name bar on a jersey, right? That's if need be, that's a pretty visible thing. But a nameplate on a stall in a room, like that's a whole
Weird.
other level of like attention to detail, right?
Yeah, and that happened for you.
Yeah, that happened from me dropping my gear off downstairs to me walking around a lower concourse, the United Center, to me entering the dressing room. And so
by the time you walk in the dressing room, it's like you're a real goalie and there's a nameplate on your spot.
Yeah, it's not like I'm down at Johnny's Ice House playing like a 11-10 game on a Monday night. Like, it's all of a sudden you're like back to like, this is the real thing. And I'm like, I'm not sure that I signed up. I mean, I signed up for this, but I don't think I really signed up for this mentally.
Right. Because you were just at home with Aaron and you were just being an accountant. And then all of a sudden this happens.
Yeah. So this is now like for real. But it's at that point still, there's still like a guy between you and playing, but it's still like a thing. That night it was pretty wild. I mean, Seabrook was playing his 1000th game. Dylan Sakura was playing his first NHL game. Now Colin Delia was being thrust into his first NHL start when he was expecting to play the second night of a back-to-back, but now all of a sudden he has to play. So you are very much a footnote at that point to like a bunch of other like pretty significant like NHL and hockey like moments for people.
So Brent Seabrook was playing his 1,000th game for the Chicago Blackhawks the day the Foz came in.
Yep. So they had a big like ceremony before the game. Obviously.
Are you dressed at that point? Are you in full equipment?
So my typical thing was I would show up like basically at the beginning of warm up, because that was the general idea of like, if things are going to go awry and you're going to be needed, it's going to be like warm up and beyond. In this case, like it happened like a guy playing sewer ball down on the concourse, like before the game or whatever.
That's called two-touch. I don't like
Two-touch.
sewer ball. It's called two-touch. It's not sewer
Fair.
ball.
Okay.
It's called two-touch.
Well, two-touch. He was playing two-touch or whatever.
These young kids need to figure it out. It's not called sewer ball. It's called two-touch.
Fair. That's fair. I can live with that. So again, like it's pretty like there's a lot of things happening that night. All the guys still make a point to like come and say hi, introduce themselves. The cool part was there was like way past our time at Western, but like Jordan Osterley played at Western. Has been playing in the show. He was on Chicago at the time, so he sees like I'm gonna use my stuff until it dies. So I'm still rocking my like Western like hockey bag. So he sees like the Western Broncos, and so he comes over, we chat for like a hot second, but like these guys are getting ready to play. There's a pregame ceremony for Seabs, like all that stuff's going on. So
Seabs. You're calling him Seabs now?
I'm not gonna.
You
I'm
played
not gonna,
what? One game? Seabs now?
Well, like fractions of a game, but I'm not gonna pretend best friends. Not even close.
I'm just kidding.
Fair enough. Fair. I deserve some ribbing, I suppose, for that.
No, I think it's awesome. I think everything that happened to you is so awesome. It makes me so happy that you have those experiences.
But yeah,
jealousy is a strange thing. I don't have any jealousy when it comes to this stuff because I've lived a fun life, and I can't believe that you got to play for the Chicago Blackhawks. Like, did you meet Patrick Kane and Jonathan Taves or
so
not?
I like during like when I'm getting dressed, like when the guys are come over, that's when I met Patrick Kane. And then during the game, because like again, I don't even go out. I don't take warm up. I don't sit on the bench. Nothing. I'm sitting in the players' lounge, full gear, watching the game on TV, and I'm sitting watching this game with Taze, who was out
By
hurt.
yourself? Or
No, I was sitting with Taze and Crawford. So they're in suits.
Scott Foster's sitting with Jonathan Taves and Corey Crawford watching
and they're in suits, and I'm in full gear. Like, so I'm sitting on a couch watching an NHL game that's playing like, behind me on the ice. Like I'm watching this game on TV and in full gear. And then in the intermissions, I would head over into the room and sit back in this stall that was like donned with my like apparently new number and name, and just kind of like taking in the experience. I had my cell phone like shoved up my my chest, the arm of my chest protector, because like you're texting with people during the night, so like I had obviously no pockets in my gear and stuff, so I would shove it up my arm of my gear when I would go in the room to like at intermissions and stuff.
So you actually got in the game though, like so Patrick Laine, because I'll never forget the night I was cooking craft dinner, and Stretchy says the Foz is playing for the Chicago Blackhawks against the Winnipeg Jets, and I said to Stretch, I said, like I'm pretty busy. I don't need text messages like this. And I didn't think it was real. And then I woke up the next morning to about 5 different text messages from people around this area I'm living now. And it was like, do you actually know this guy? And I was like, the Foz? I know the Foz, yeah. Hell of a player. But like you were a teammate, and that's what you did for the Blackhawks, right? Like you were just a good teammate. You were
I
ready to
mean,
rock.
admittedly, I think it was more that they were good teammates, right? Like that point in the season, they were running out the stretch of a lost season essentially, and like I'm not an NHL player by any stretch of the imagination, and but like when you have guys like Duncan Keith and Patrick Sharp and stuff blocking shots and playing like it's a playoff game so that you don't like die on the ice, like that shows like the character of like just hockey players in general. Like they get the moment and they know like it's a pretty incredible experience, obviously, but it's still a real NHL game. Like things don't stop just because you entered that game. Like I went out there the first time. I mean, I've played with guys that have had times in the show and stuff like that since and what, or even before then, but it's not like on a regular basis I'm in NHL practices or anything of that sort. So you're getting like a dozen shots at a commercial break to get ready to play an NHL hockey game. And I'm pretty sure I stopped 6 of 12 of those warm-up shots. And it was a sold out night at the UC, which is like 22,000 people. It's on TV because it's a big night with Seabrook playing his 1,000th game there and stuff. Like I don't know, it's wild to think back to like all the things that were like happening at that point in time. But I don't know, you made it out alive. I credit myself with like 2 real saves. The other shots, even though it's the NHL, I would hope that I could at least put my body in front of, as long as I'm not throwing up.
Can I say something now?
Sure.
I personally like everybody has their opinion about, oh, it's this accountant that is thrust into an NHL game and holy moly, he actually stopped people. Like, dude, you were a good goalie. You won Division 1 hockey games. You as our starting goalie. Like you were a really good goalie. And like I think that's lost on the whole story is that people that play in the NHL, and I had the same problem when I was trying to get into pro, was that I was always like, holy moly, I've seen this guy play on TV. Like I know who that guy is. I've seen his last name. Instead of being like, there's people want me on this team because like I'm good too, right? Like and that's what you like. You could have stopped Patrick Laine on shots. You're a Division 1 college athlete, and you were a good goalie that won games. And what happened with the Blackhawks is not surprising to me at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think the difference is like those guys at that level, like they do it every day, and I had to do it for a handful of minutes or whatever. But it's not like I didn't know what to do.
It just
I
had
get
been a long time since you had been like a real hockey player, right?
Yeah, and again, it was weird because it wasn't like every day that I was at a game, I was like anticipating that moment happening. It was probably the exact opposite. I was like, this is a cool way to watch a game and whatnot. So you just go out and you just play. And I remember, and this is like super cliche about like the whole thing, but it was like, I gotta stop like my first shot. And that's like a weird thing about being a goalie is like you just kind of get in a rhythm. And it was my first NHL save, which still seems weird to say, was like a weak wrister from the corner by Tyler Myers, which, I mean, I would throw everything at the net too on a 36-year-old accountant at that moment too. But you make a save and you just kind of like realize like this is just hockey and play it. It's definitely a weird moment, but I look back and I'm like, I made 2 saves that I'm like proud of, like that I made those saves in like an NHL game. I mean, I guess I'm proud of all of them, but if I look back, I'm like, those were like actual good.
I understand where you're getting at, because like that's what I didn't like about the whole story, was that they acted like you had never played hockey before, and like you were an accomplished goalie that was a Division 1 winning goalie, started 55 games in his career or whatever it was, and like they were talking like all you are is an accountant, and I was like, that is not the real story. Like, this kid can play hockey, right?
Yeah, and I don't know. I guess you don't get hung up on the narrative, right? Because what was the most, I think the best part to me was when you have either guys you're like playing with or guys you've played with and all this stuff that are reaching out to you. Actually, quick, like really short story is like one of my first games back at Johnny's, back in beer leagues, right? Like it wasn't a week later, I'm back to normal hockey, which is playing in front of oddly more people because they're filtering out from Blackhawks games to come down the street to Johnny's Ice House to see this accountant play in a beer league game. But I'm playing against Andy Hilbert, who played at Michigan and the Islanders and the Bruins and stuff. Played, a few hundred NHL games. We play a game, we're in the handshake line, and he's super competitive still to this day. I played against him last night. He still goes like full tilt. But I remember him in the handshake line, he's like, like, congrats, that was awesome. And that was a guy who made it like legit to the NHL, like working hard and stuff. And that was like the moment you realize like who cares? Like, you don't care about the narrative that people that aren't intertwined with the game are. These are guys that are like, that lived and breathed this their entire life. Same with you trying to make it to the highest level possible. Like, I'm not pretending to be an NHL player. Like, I don't think I'm an NHL goalie. You're just playing the game because the game is awesome. And guys think the same thing, right? And that to me has been the best part about this whole thing, is the reaction of people that have been in the game and love it and just want to give you like that tap on the pads or whatever.
Dude, you're 100% right, and that's 100% what this podcast is all about, is giving you your pad tap. And it's not about I guess Western Michigan and how everything went down. It was like, man, you were there. You were a grinder. Like, when they asked if you wanted to be on the list, you said yes. And you showed up, and it happened for you in your life. And like, that's incredible. Like, people who have jealousy, I don't understand it. I don't get it. Um, I am so proud of you because you loved the game. You loved hockey. You were a great teammate. You were with me every second I was at Western Michigan. Uh, and I don't know what else to say. Like I think it's incredible that that happened to you in your life.
Yeah, I don't know. It's still a bit surreal and stuff, but um yeah, I mean it's weird to think back to that whole like experience and stuff. Again, it wasn't something that I was like searching for or seeking out, or I was perfectly content with everything that I was doing, and I'm perfectly content with everything that I'm doing now. Like it's
Other than
um
that tight shirt, man, I don't know how you breathe with that thing on.
I'm sure Vex probably outdid me, but
Well, I obviously you've been probably using his training program because I don't even know how you can breathe with that neck on you there. Hey,
I'm in search of my next contract, right?
that's right. And we never know when they're gonna need another emergency backup. Um, I don't think we have anything else other than um the only question I got, are you still an emergency backup? And could the Scott Foster story happen again?
So the season following that, I said I wasn't going to do it anymore. Um, that lasted not even one full season. I went back and did a game because they needed people. I went and did like morning skates and stuff for them. And then the following year, I dove right back into taking like my full slate of games. And then with everything that's going on in the world and stuff now, the rules are a bit different now, so they don't need like the accountant emergency goalie right now. We'll see what happens when things sort itself back out of whether I need to whether the old bones can take it and the nerves can take it if I'm approaching 40 here. We'll see.
Um, I I can't wait. I can't wait for Stretchy to text me and say, um, the Foz is playing for the Chicago Blackhawks right now, and he just stopped Patrick Laine. I can't wait for that day. I That was one of my favorite days of my life. I'll never forget it, and I'm sure you'll never forget it.
Yeah, I think that goes without saying for sure.
Yeah, well, buddy, I think we've covered everything there is. I think it was awesome. I'm happy you came on, and this is hockey, and this is the first goalie. So welcome to trying to pick those brains because who knows what they're thinking, eh? Those goalies are nuts. And I'm gonna hit stopping recording.